Okay, we're now live streaming, and any second now we will be able to start this personal committee. Okay, welcome to this meeting of the Personnel Committee meeting. Item 1, apologies for absence.
We've had
any apologies?
No apologies, Chairman.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Minutes on which are on page 5 and 6 to consider and approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of September. Do we approve those minutes? Or rather, has anybody any objection to those minutes?
No.
Then those minutes are accepted. Thank you. We move on then to item 4, employer-supported volunteering policy. And I think Andrina is going to bring this forward.
Thank you, Chair. So the concept of this policy has been around a while. I think it's something that's been spoken about here and there, and it's never actively been progressed. I think, there have been various discussions around it. However, we've got to a position where staff seem very keen to give something back to their local communities while they're working for us, and they see that as being very important. Plus, there are some clear links to the newly drafted corporate plan, and also to the principles that are contained within the Times Top 100 Best Companies that we are actively hoping to achieve this year. If approved, we want to keep this policy under review because obviously it's very new to us. It's very difficult to put an estimate on how many staff we think may take us up on the opportunity. So the proposal would be to bring this back to committee either in April or in June next year, as we collate the data over kind of a good calendar year, to provide an update so you can see how it's been reflected across the organisation. And the proposal that we have is for up to 2 days paid per year for each employee. It doesn't have to be taken all at the same time. It could be taken as half days or individual days or the block. And to encourage them to do some volunteering within our district that either links to their areas of expertise, or it could be something that they're just very, very interested in and want to support that reflects activities across the district. So happy to take any questions.
Okay, over to you, members.
I think it looks quite straightforward. Yeah, sorry, Chairman, please. Yeah. I think it looks quite straightforward, having read through it. I mean, you seem to have covered all the areas. Whoever wants to do the volunteering over the 2 days, they obviously say to you what they're going to be working on, so that's covered. So you know exactly where these people are going to be when they're not employed at that moment. So I think it's quite straightforward, this system. And I think for the council, it shows that we're caring, a caring council, allowing our staffing to do some volunteering in different areas.
Thank you. Dan.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic concept. It's something that I've been doing personally with my team for over 10 years, that I give them a week per year paid to volunteer. But there are some strict criteria for where they go, like certain working and volunteering for companies that make charges and stuff like that. Would that be under conflict of interest, maybe? Because in my line of work, people go and volunteer, but sometimes they've been caught up with companies that are making a charge for the service that they're doing whilst people are innocently volunteering. So I'm just wondering how that is covered.
Okay. Anybody else with any questions? Okay, then I'll go back to Susan and Andrina to cover that query by Councillor Brooke.
I think it's a valid point. Yes, if there was a conflict of interest in terms of how they were approaching that, or the company they wanted to go and do some volunteering for, that would all be part of those considerations as to whether or not it was approved. So as soon as we knew who they were wanting to go and volunteer for, what they're doing, absolutely.
Excellent, thank you.
Tim has managed to find the blue hand. Tim.
You knew I wouldn't lose the blue hand. Yeah, I'd also like to echo what Councillor Brooks said. I think this is an excellent step forward, good scheme. Just confirming to my mind that 2.4, which gives school governor and forces and magistrate and special constable time off, that's additional, as I understand it from my reading of this. So you can do both of those, and that's excellent. So yeah, I'd very much welcome this, and B, would like to see us not just having the policy, but promoting the policy and encouraging people to use it. It's all very well it being there as an option, but actually having got it there as an option, we should be saying, not only is it there as an option, please do.
I think it will be, Councillor. Andrina.
I was just going to say that there's an email waiting to go this afternoon to actively encourage staff and release it to them.
I know there's quite a bit of pressure. Right, I need a proposer and a seconder for this, please. Who's proposing? Councillor Shue.
I'm happy to second.
Dan seconding. Councillor Brooks seconding. Right, okay. Unless any other member wishes to speak. Proposed by Councillor Shue, seconded by Councillor Brooke. All those in favour, please take the roll call.
Thank you. Councillor Berry.
4.
Councillor Brooke.
4.
Councillor Keane.
4.
Councillor Monk.
4.
Councillor Prater.
4.
Councillor Shube.
4.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, then we move on to item 6, pay policy statement. Andrina.
Okay, thank you. So once again, this statement has been brought to Personnel Committee. It's been presented annually since 2012 now for the committee to recommend on to full council ahead of the 1st of April each year. The one key update just to draw your attention to really is reflected in paragraph 38 of the appendix, that's page 24 of your packs. And that makes reference to the newly introduced exit pay cap restrictions that came into force from November last year. That now means that should any exit pay cap be over £95,000, we would have to go to not only full council, but that would have to be a waiver that would need to go through a strict procedure going through to HM Treasury to actually approve that. So where that paragraph used to refer to council voting on exit packages in excess of £100,000, it's now reflecting the exit pay cap at 95,000. So other than that, it's as you saw last year and for several years previously, but as always, happy to take questions.
Thank you. Over to you, members. Tim.
Question, why £95,000 as opposed to another number?
Adrina, just confirm it's statutory.
It is statutory, set under regulations that have come through from government.
Okay, straightforward policy. Can I have a proposer?
I'm happy to propose.
Councillor Brooks, seconded by
And Berry.
Councillor Berry. Okay, so proposed by Councillor Brooks, seconded by Councillor Berry. All those in favour, please take the roll call.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Berry.
4.
Councillor Brooke.
4.
Councillor Keane.
4.
Councillor Monk.
4.
Councillor Prater.
4.
Councillor Shube.
4.
That's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to item 5, removal of essential user allowance, which has been before us before and now come back with some recommendations. Andrina.
Thank you. Again, like I said, this goes back to discussions at the last committee, which was in September 2020. And what we've done is now bring forward a proposal, which is in section 4 of your pack, page 30, to remove the essential user allowances. That's with effect from the 1st of April this year, which sees through to the commitment made several years ago as part of pay negotiations to remove this allowance. The proposal here is to do that on a 3-year phased reduction through to 1st of April 2024. And alongside that, we have the proposal to implement a new cash alternative level just for those staff that are travelling in excess of 1,800 miles a year. And we're seeing, even through the last year with lockdown and lots of different working practices, that those staff that historically did those amount of miles are still doing so for work purposes. That's grounds maintenance, building control, those types of occupations. At the last committee, there were quite a few references made to kind of elements such as sustainable travel, incentivising greener travel, removing the full car allowance, cash alternative, etc. And I think these all potentially form part of a much larger and longer project, which naturally fits with the work that we're going to start during the 21-22 year on looking at employee terms and conditions in light of Cabinet's recent decision. To continue exploring the idea of the town centre access point, relocation of the civic offices and so on away from Castle Hill Avenue. So I think there's a natural synergy with some of those elements that were discussed previously to bring into that much larger piece of work. So the proposal's there before you, and again, happy to take questions.
Okay, members, over to you. I think that personally, I think that it's time we drew a line under this. This is I think quite a reasonable way forward. When we go into pay negotiations, both sides agree to accept them. We've just taken a very long time to implement this. I think the time is right. With the amount of travel that's been curtailed over the last year, we've actually seen who are truly essential users, and I think our policy is very right on this, and I'm happy to propose it. I'll look for a seconder in a minute. Tim.
Thank you. Couple of points. I think that this has moved a long way forward, so thank you to Andrina and the others who have worked on this. I think this is a series of good steps forward. Couple of things that still point out in the scheme. The scheme is, or the car allowance scheme, which is rightfully renamed, as there was no cash or nothing to be an alternative to. It says it can cover all grades, but it doesn't include directors yet. I'd like to hope that when we came to a full reworking of this, that directors were actually included in the same scheme. Even if there is a different payment for the car at that stage, I think it would be much more transparent if directors sat in the same scheme as everybody else.
Can I just go to Susan to ask her to comment on that?
And muting. Yeah, I mean, I think as Andrina has alluded to, we're going to have a sort of root and branch review of many policies relating to the larger project of the civic centre relocation. And the intention is to have a very strategic, holistic view across all these issues. So I would imagine that we would look at all of that and bring back some proposals to members in due course. Thank you.
I would assume that as we what's the word I'm looking for, put on the cloak of the green agenda, that we will be digging deeply into transport usage. I think it's an essential part of it. Anybody else wish to speak? Andrina?
I was just going to add into that, Chair, that the reason that directors aren't necessarily referred to in this particular report is obviously they sit on separate terms and conditions and would need a separate negotiation away from the full body of staff. But noted that
I think Counter Prater understands that. He's just saying it would be nice for transparency to see it all in. Tim, do you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you. I do accept that point, is that that's not something that's going to be inserted into this document right now, but I think as we've all said, there's a direction of travel beyond this to go to, and that I think would be the right place to do. And David beat me to the punch on my final point, which is that this doesn't, the fit of this with our carbon zero policy and our direction of travel on that. Obviously, we've seen figures quite recently. Well, obviously, we have seen figures quite recently showing that that our grey fleet has quite an impact in terms of our carbon usage. And medium term, we should be looking at transitioning to ways that we can reduce that. Somebody's home car is likely to be less environmentally friendly than, for instance, if we had our own fleet of electric vehicles. Use of those for certain journeys, etc., should be discouraging the use of petrol and diesel and encouraging the use of electric. And I'm sure a medium-term strategy would be looking at that as a transition.
Councillor Fraser, whilst of course I can't disagree with you, is that we always have to do the cost-benefit ratio,
of course,
because we haven't got a bottomless pit of money.
I'm also talking about medium term, and the numbers may be very different in terms of those cars and those vehicles in 2 or 3 years than they are now. There'll be a lot more charging points, for instance, due to the excellent stewardship or being brought forward in terms of providing them.
I always take my life in risk when I start an argument with you, don't I? But,
I wasn't yet starting an argument, but we can go if you want.
No. Right. Does anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Brooke.
No, I was just simply going to say I second, because I don't think you've had a seconder.
Thank you. That's good. That's good. Right. Does any other member wish to talk? Then it is proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Brooke. All those in favour, take the roll call, please.
Thank you. Councillor Berry?
4.
Councillor Brooke?
4.
Councillor Keane?
4.
Councillor Monk?
4.
Councillor Prater?
4.
And Councillor Shube?
4.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, members. That concludes the business of